Hello, hello.
Hello,
I'm Carly,
and I'm Sarah.
and we are two deaf women doing this podcast. We're going to be answering all of your curious questions and sharing some of our life experiences. But get this, our voices are in our hands. Are you curious? Come check out our podcast.
Let's go.
Hello,
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 hello.
and welcome to
What
What
the
the
deaf?
Deaf podcast. Currently, you are actually hearing us through two deaf women who use American Sign Language.
And we have two people voicing for us as we sign.
Right. So, American Sign Language is a language that the deaf community uses to communicate, in case you didn't know. It's a beautiful language. I think you should learn it, but I might be a little biased.
Especially because you can talk underwater, through windows, through car windows, even from afar.
It's the best. It makes your life so much easier.
Now, Carly, I want to ask you something.
Okay.
You're deaf?
Yes.
Can you hear anything
No.
at all?
No. Maybe an airplane, but that doesn't benefit me for being capable of hearing.
So is English and American Sign Language the same?
No. And that is actually the what the deaf's problem. Often on a job application or any application for that matter that you fill out, it says, "Do you speak English?" or "What language do you speak?" And it's got a couple boxes there to check. And I'm like, okay, so I read and write English, but I use American Sign Language to communicate. So what box do I check off here?
Other?
Check. But then they come in and be like, "Oh, other." So I guess they don't speak English. I'm not going to hire them. Toss that away.
Or oftentimes the application would say, like, oral presentation skills is required, and I'm like, "What the deaf?"
What the deaf?
So this is basically what this podcast will be about. We'll be talking about our experiences in the hearing world and how we navigate a world that wasn't designed for us. And we'll be answering your questions. And you might have some curious questions, and nothing is off limits. We've heard everything. Well, heard, no, we've seen everything.
Yeah, like you're too pretty to be deaf.
Thanks. What is that supposed to mean? Like, what do deaf people look like?
I think like an alien. I don't know. Maybe we should ask hearing people.
What the deaf?
But yes, overall, we are just very excited to be able to answer any of your curious questions coming from two deaf women who have two totally different journeys. And we will dig a little bit deeper with our lives with you guys.
An identity.
Identity, yeah. And we can see how we got to who we are today. Plus, we will dive into the deaf community and hopefully learn something new. Like we can learn about the culture, which is such a beautiful culture that is very multi layered, which makes us so diverse. It's so much fun to be able to throw different topics and have a conversation with you all and answer your questions.
And speaking of questions, I have a question for you. So you're fully deaf and obviously you've never listened to a podcast, right?
Well, no.
So then what motivated you to create a podcast for a hearing audience?
What the deaf? Oftentimes, I don't want to accommodate hearing people. I am deaf and I have my needs. But one of my biggest passions is to educate the hearing community. I was born deaf. My whole entire family is deaf, except for my sister, who's actually an interpreter. So at home, I had full access to American Sign Language. We communicate through sign language. I also went to a deaf school, which is a school for deaf students. And a lot of the teachers and staff members, they're either deaf or they communicate in sign language. And if they're not deaf, they need to know sign language compared to a mainstream school where typically there's only one or a few deaf students mainstreamed with a general public school. And I've actually experienced both avenues. And that's when I discovered my passion is to educate the hearing community. I want to build a bridge and be able to give back because I know that our deaf culture and community has so much to contribute to this world. And unfortunately, due to communication barriers, there's always a huge factor to be able to build that bridge. And what's the best way to fix that? It wasn't until my previous job I gave presentations. I worked as a behavioral health coordinator where I would go to hospitals or police stations or a variety of different businesses and give presentations talking about deaf culture and how best to work with deaf and hard of hearing individuals. An example I like to use is a hospital setting. Say I got into a car accident and I was badly injured. My first thought is not to get myself better. It's, is there going to be an interpreter there? Will I understand what the process is? Will I understand what happened to me? Or who am I even speaking to? That's my first worry is interpreters. I have to advocate for myself and I have to reach out to meet my needs. And, I have to make sure my communication needs are being met while I'm being in pain. My priority should be focusing on how to get myself better, but it's not. It's searching for an interpreter. And so my job is to educate and make sure that they understand our needs and our accommodations and why it's important to bring in an interpreter and provide that communication access. During my presentations, I noticed the audience are always coming up with so many good questions, a lot of curious questions about our lives. And I'm an open book. So I thought a podcast would be the perfect way to allow you to be in your own comfort zone and learn about us and just ask your questions so we can have an open dialogue. And hopefully, this will make us become better people in this world.
Wow, that's beautifully said. I'm so fortunate to be friends with you for almost 10 years and share my perspectives as well because my upbringing was completely different than yours, yet we've been best friends for 10 years. Ugh, it's such a beautiful thing.
So, tell us about your journey.
My journey, well, like I said, it's different than Carly's. I was born into a hearing family and I'm the only one who's deaf, but I wasn't born deaf. I was misdiagnosed, and a surgeon severed my facial nerve, paralyzing the right side of my face and losing my hearing at the age of 3. And later, I went to a private school, and I thought I was the dumbest one in class because I couldn't hear the teachers and I had no ASL access. So I just tried to accommodate the hearing world because I thought that was my responsibility growing up. But then I transferred schools that had a tripod program, and it was basically like a mainstream school that had 2 teachers that spoke and signed, and there were deaf, hard of hearing, and hearing students all integrated in the classroom, and I finally felt like I wasn't alone anymore. And through that schooling, I learned sign language, I spoke, I went to speech therapy, I wore a hearing aid, which helped me hear. And through that journey, I kind of became the bridge to both worlds. Yet, when I was in high school, I labeled myself hard of hearing because I didn't fully understand what it meant to be deaf. I didn't realize being deaf is more than just your ears. And when I went to college and met you, you beautiful thing, and it changed my perspective on what it meant to be deaf. It's my pride, my identity, and I learned so much about myself through that, and I'm still learning. And I feel like in today's world, we're all unpacking ourselves, and I'm discovering a lot about my own identity. That, in a nutshell, is my journey through life. But I'm so grateful to be on this podcast answering everyone's questions. And one question I remember, a literal what the deaf moment. I was being interviewed by a group of engineers, college students. And the first question they asked me was, do deaf people wear watches?
Hmm. Well, I don't have one on now.
Neither. But they said, like, wouldn't it be too heavy to sign with? Like, wouldn't our arms get tired? And it was in that moment I realized I'm so used to having my circle of people who know and understand the deaf community, but there's so many people out there who have no idea about our community, culture, and language.
And not just that, but they're so curious, but they're too scared to ask. Like they're unsure of what's the best method to communicate with us. And it's a different feeling for them to get out of their comfort zone. So they become afraid to ask questions while I'm over here
Bring it
like,
on.
come
Bring on
on.
all the questions.
I would love to answer all of your questions that they have for us. I would love to open this dialogue with you all. And also, it's a beautiful thing about our culture is that there's no right or wrong way to be deaf. There's also so many layers within our world. So, for example, I label myself as a deaf individual with a deaf family, yet my experience can be completely different than the other person who also identifies themselves as deaf.
Like me, I identify myself as deaf, but I can hear and talk. And many people would be like, but no, you're not really deaf because you can hear. And again, being deaf is not limited to just my ears. There's so much more to it. And I'm so excited to be able to show you guys that by sharing our stories and our 10 years of friendship.
Oh, and let me tell you about my favorite what the deaf question for me. It might be different for you. Can you read my lips? So, well, okay, first of all, did you know that Hearing Society actually invented a game where one person puts on a headphone and the other person reads a sentence, and the person with the headphones tries to read that person's lip? The fact that people created this game shows you how challenging reading lips is. So, what makes people think that I can read lips?
That's the assumption.
Right. Like, okay, honey, if you find a hearing person who is 100% an expert in this, bring him to me and teach me how. Like, seriously. I mean, if you say these three words, okay, pay me, maybe, and baby, try that and see how similar all of these words look. So, be one day there could be a person who says, pay me. And I'm like, why are you calling me baby?
Ugh.
Like, no, I cannot read lips at all.
Oh, and the worst thing that's going on right now is quarantine is masks.
The worst.
Oh my goodness. And the worst thing about that is first, you never know who's talking to you. And then when they do talk to you and they realize that you're deaf, they'll pull down their mask and like breathe their air towards me.
And I feel like they went from, "Can you read my lips?" to, "Hey, can you read my eyes?" All I can see are your eyebrows going up and down with the mask, and I'm like,
I
"Hold
still
on.
don't
Okay, I cannot
understand.
understand you at all."
Yes. And that also made me realize I actually accommodate hearing people and how truly ingrained in me to make sure that I look at them, that I'm able to read their lips or sit in the right place and make sure I see clearly. I accommodate them so much. And I'm like, it's a lot of work I do. Like, I should get paid for that.
It is.
Oh my God.
And to add what you said, like, during quarantine time, I learned something new about you as a person, and it's really interesting to watch you communicate with hearing people with their mask on. For those who are learning American Sign Language or have the ability to gesture with their mask on, I happen to understand them better. Not better, but faster than you can. Sarah is struggling more because she's so used to relying on everything that includes reading their lips. And as for me, I'm able to watch their gestures, their facial expressions without reading their lips. And so reading lips is not my skill. Yes, it's still a struggle for me to understand with mask on, but I'm able to understand them while they add gestures. Sarah is struggling more. And because of that, I'm able to finally interpret for Sarah. The whole time, she's always interpreting for me, and so that was interesting, and it's always a new experience for everyone and an adventure for us.
Yeah. And another thing I've learned during this time is the term privilege. That's another term that I've learned during quarantine. What is my privilege versus what is your privilege in this world? And for me, being able to hear and talk, I've acknowledged now that that is my privilege. So now with quarantine and masks, it took away my privilege. I mean, I still have my privilege to hear and talk, but you have privilege too because you're able to not rely on that. It's an interesting perspective.
For sure. Well, and again, this is just the tip of the iceberg of our story as two deaf women who are navigating through a world that's not designed for us. We're two deaf women who have so much passion to build a bridge with the hearing world and answer any of your questions. And it's just a beautiful conversation.
Yeah, and we hope to inspire you to unpack and learn about yourselves and us and continue to listen to our stories that we have to tell. And this will be raw, unfiltered, and we will be opening ourselves up and learn more about us and the world in general. And don't forget, we are only two deaf women out of the many, many, many deaf people in the world. And people might not agree with what we say on this podcast, but that's okay. As long as we all have empathy and understanding and just seeing each other's perspectives. We're so excited to share this dialogue with you guys.
And you can email your questions to us at questions@whatthedeaf.com.
And you can follow us on Instagram at What the Deaf.
Yay!
Woohoo!
Can't wait to see you next week.
What the Deaf.